Damn, what the fuck was that, homie? What the fuck, man? Are we under attack or some shit? What's that smell? Yo, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Go ahead, get this channel, subscribe, share, leave some messages and comments, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. You know what to do. So what would happen if the United States fell into an invasion situation from a foreign country? Like, let's say, Russia, China, or since the President of the United States seems to like pissing off all of Europe, what would happen if Europe united and decided to invade the U.S.? What about Mexico? What if Mexico invaded? Canada? What if Canada invaded? What would happen if we fell into a revolution or a civil war? What would happen to people in prison? We're going to talk all about that right here because I got the answers for you. I've actually had this conversation with people that have worked in multiple different correctional systems, may it be California, in Oklahoma, in the feds, and the answer is sort of similar, usually pretty much the same, but it really depends on who you ask. Some people will just let you know what it is. Other people might just kind of dance around the topic a little bit. And I have some relatives that work in the TDC or worked in the TDC, and I was able to get some insight from them on this as well. And here's what it is. So the United States falls into an invasion. What would happen to people in prison? In order to understand that, you have to really go back in time and look at other similar situations where countries were invaded. What did they do with their prison population? Well, there's really no known records of what happened during the American Revolution when it kicked off in the 13 colonies, what happened in the debtors' prisons, because I don't think many people stuck around in those prisons long enough to find out anyways. Or what happened in the French Revolution when Napoleon took over, or the Russian Revolution when the Red Army finally seized control and created the Soviet Union. What happened to the gulags? There's really no records to really talk about that, but from what I'm told, in the situation of the gulags in the newly formed Soviet Union directly following the Russian Revolution, was that they just released a bunch of people and killed a bunch of other people. So it was kind of like a mixed bag of things, but there wasn't no real policy put into place to deal with the prison population. Now, a more recent moment in time, we have two examples of what happens to prisoners in a situation of an invasion. The eldest being the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. What did they do? In the beginning, they were using everybody that they had put in the concentration camp, whether you be Jew, Polish, gypsies, whatnot, gay. There was all kinds of different people in those concentration camps, not just Jews. And what they did is they put them to work for an extended period of time, and they were gassing a lot of people. At the end of it all, when Germany was completely overran, they started to step up the pace of executions, and they started killing more and more people faster, because they just wanted to get rid of them, as many of them as they could. They couldn't get rid of all of them, though. If you've ever seen a movie called Schindler's List, you'll kind of see what happens in the end. In some cases, they just couldn't bring themselves to do it, and they've seen enough killing, it was over with. More recently, during the, what do they call it? It wasn't Desert Storm, or Desert Storm was the first one. It was Operation Iraqi Freedom. When we invaded Iraq, what happened in Abu Ghraib prison, Saddam Hussein just let everybody out. He just let them all out to run in the streets because he thought, well, hey, this will create chaos. Why waste bullets on people that are in prison? So he just let them all out. Another one of recent times, but this was in the 80s, and it wasn't a result of an invasion. It was a result of pretty much saving money and downsizing. Fidel Castro, instead of executing a bunch of people in his overcrowded prisons, he just let them all go and sent them to the United States as refugees. And they ended up here, most of them. But all bullshit aside, what is the real policy, if any, to deal with the prison population in the event of an invasion. And I've heard a lot of different things. The one that I've heard the most was that they'd just drop gas canisters down into the vent system and just gas everybody. Everybody will just choke on the nerve gas or anthrax gas, whatever it is that they're pumping into those vents, and everyone will just die. Slow, miserable, painful death in the process. Another one that I heard is that they would just go around and shoot every prisoner. Now, I find that one kind of hard to believe, that somebody's going to take that much time to shoot each prisoner. You got to think, man, there's like 4,000 inmates at any given time in most of these prisons. So is somebody really going to go around and shoot all these people? They're going to take them all outside and line them all up and shoot them all at once? Are they going to just drop a bomb on the prison? What'll happen? And you get a lot of different stories of how that would go down. But I think that if there is a policy, I haven't technically seen it with my own eyes. But if there is, I believe that it would be something more along the lines of gassing everybody. I think that would be the best approach that they could take. I don't think that they would open up a whole bunch of doors during an emergency, a crisis, an invasion, and deal with that many inmates in such in a large area like that, because there'd be a lot of chaos and confusion. Gassing would be, my guess, the most logical method of killing as many people as they can all at once, because it's just all you do. You drop it down one vent on the roof and everybody's gone. Another one that I believe, and this is what I believe would happen. If we were invaded, where let's just say a nuke was just dropped on Indianapolis, of all places, and it was just leveled, and there was a foreign invasion en route over sea or in the air, and everything was chaos, and there was rioting in the streets, and all this shit was going on a human level, I believe that most of these correctional officers would just run out. They would be gone. They'd just drop everything, head for the door, get in their cars, and try to make it as fast as they can to their families, or as fast as they can out of that place before it was too late. I don't think they're going to sit around wasting a bunch of time killing a bunch of people that really they don't care about to begin with. It takes a special kind of person to want to really sit there and spend the time to do that when you're under attack and your family could be exposed to all kinds of violent and riots and chaos in the streets. You're going to want to get out of there. So what it would happen would everybody would just leave. If I was in there, I'd be looking out my window and I'd see all these correctional officers just running out of there. Everybody would just be leaving. In the beginning, it would it looks like they're responding to a riot. But they're really just trying to get the fuck out of there as fast as they can. Then hours would go by. Hours and hours would go by. Count time would go by and there would be nobody to count us. The sun would go down, the sun would come up, and there would still be nobody. We would just be sitting there wondering what the fuck is going on. People would start to panic because there's a lot of people in prison that need that sense of security knowing that there is a CO out there. If there's no CO out there to open the doors, people are going to start wondering, why can't I get out of my cell? Why are the TVs all blacked out with an emergency broadcast system? How come I can't get through to nothing on the radio? People can start turning on their TVs. If the signal's down, you ain't getting nothing unless you can figure out how to run your antenna. You can get on the radio and you could probably hear what's going on. But then panic sets in. People are beating on their doors. People are going crazy. If the water's still running and if it hasn't been cut off in the main line in the city or someplace like that, unless the prison has its own water supply, eventually the water will run out. The electricity would eventually go off, and there would be no way to hear anything unless you had batteries on your radio. You wouldn't really be able to see anything because most prisons are out in the middle of nowhere. It would be chaos in there, and you'd be stuck. And if you didn't have any commissary, if you that one guy that didn't have a penny to your name, and you relied on that chow hall to sustain you nutritiously, you're going to be in a world of hurt. But the guys that have commissary or canteen, we like to call it in California, in their cell, would probably be all right for a little while if they learned how to ration their food. But what if you're in a situation where you're in a two-man cell and you're the only one that has commissary or canteen. And you're going to start feeling like you need to conserve this food for yourself. Who's this fucking guy? He hasn't contributed nothing. He didn't buy this shit. I'm going to eat it all myself, which can cause conflict. Next thing you know, a fight breaks out and somebody's going to die in a situation like that. Now you're left to sit in a cell with a rotten corpse and all this commissary that's going to run out eventually. The water cuts off. Now the water's gone. So now you're shitting and pissing in a toilet that you can't even flush. If you got a big giant door that slides open, you're not going to get that door down. If your back window is a little slit this big, you're not going to be able to break through that wall. There's no way to escape this situation. You are stuck. And panic is setting in to this whole prison. People are killing each other in these cells. These dorms, they're ripping the frame off of them. If you're in a dorm, you got a better fighting chance. Because all that many people and everything that's around, you could probably put something together and be able to bust them doors down at some point. But if you're in a cell, you're stuck like Chuck. If you're in the SHU or an ADSEG, you're even more fucked. You don't know what the hell's going on at all, because most of the times you don't even have a radio. It would be a slow, painful, miserable, horrible death that you would experience in this process. You would not be going quickly. Starvation comes very slow. You would pray that you would first die of dehydration if the water cuts off. That would be the best thing, because you'd only last a few days, a couple days or so before you would die without water. Most people would probably hang themselves or take their razors and cut their own throats. It would be the most horrible situation that you can imagine being put into. Because all the people that are out there, the country's under attack, nukes are dropping, all these things are happening, have a better chance of survival than you do. You're just straight fucked. It's over with for you. You're done. So, the best thing that I could say as far as advice goes in a situation like this is, your life cannot be that bad. Your life can't be that bad if you're outside of prison. No matter how bad a situation is, you never have to lose sight of your hope. You can always overcome any situation and get yourself out of it. I'm living proof of that. Luckily for me, because like I said, I was believing the hype as well. After Donald Trump got elected president, I was one of the many people that for a second, but it didn't last long, that thought that there was going to be a riot or a revolution or mass chaos in the streets. None of that shit happened. Because if that would have happened, so in the situation of a revolution or civil unrest, what would happen to people in prison? It'd be chaos, there'd be fighting in the streets, it'd be all-out warfare. Same situation, all the guards would leave. Now, unless like a rebel army overran the prison, I don't even think they would free everybody. They would probably kill as many people as they can, or they'd use the rest of them as workers. These are just some things to think about if you're thinking about ever going to prison. Because with the way shit's going in the world right now, we're on very thin ice. And the shit might pop up at any given moment. No matter how bad you may think your life is. Picture sitting in that cell and watching that CO run out of the building, run towards the parking lot, and he's never seen again. That right there should be motivation enough to never want to go to prison. That's one of many factors. Don't want to be stuck in there during an invasion, and that's some real talk right there. Glad I made it out. Damn, couldn't even think about it. Prison Break raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoat, non-politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with a reality. See you in the next one.